You're seeing this video today because you're either a patient about to be set up on non-invasive ventilation or NIV therapy, or you're a carer about to care for someone with NIV therapy. So what is NIV therapy? You may have also heard the term bi-level or BiPAP. As this indicates, there are two levels of pressure. We have an upper pressure to support the breath in and a lower pressure that is continuous, that continues to splint the airways open as the patient breathes out. The patient is completely in control of their own breathing, and they will trigger a breath which then allows the pressure to be driven to give them a nice big breath in, and the patient also ends the breath when they feel ready, allowing the patient to breathe out but also providing this constant support to splint the airways. The machine also has a backup rate, so for example when the patient is in a deep sleep, if they miss a couple of breaths, the machine will detect that and will kick in with a mandatory breath, therefore supporting the ventilation all the way through the night. So why do patients need NIV therapy? There are many conditions where ventilation is affected. Ventilation is the process of breathing in oxygen and breathing out carbon dioxide. If any part of ventilation is affected, this affects the ability of the body to expel carbon dioxide and can tip the patient into what we call type 2 respiratory failure, which is low oxygen levels and high carbon dioxide levels. If you have high carbon dioxide levels in the blood, this can make you very sick. It can also give you more subtle symptoms such as headaches, confusion, pins and needles, and feeling generally quite unwell and quite groggy. The NIV therapy for many people will just be used overnight. The reason for this is when we are in a deep sleep, our ventilation reduces naturally and a lot of our muscles switch off into a deep sleep as well. Therefore, any ability we had to blow off carbon dioxide during the day is less so during the night, and this can then lead to carbon dioxide building up and the patient awaking to feel unrefreshed and or unwell. Some people may need this NIV therapy throughout the day as well, for example as disease progresses. So how does non-invasive ventilation work? This device works by having a nicely tight fitting mask applied to the face. As the person breathes in, the machine detects the breath in and then supports this with nice big breath in, allowing the patient to take a deep breath and then breathe out, although at a slightly lower pressure to splint open the airways. The patient is in control of the breathing. The device just supports the person to take a bigger breath, therefore allowing them to take a nice big breath in and then blow out that carbon dioxide afterwards. A clinician will set the device in a clinical mode, and we will decide on the pressures that are required and also something called the backup rate. What this means is, especially during a deep sleep, if a breath is missed, the machine will detect this and will trigger its own breath, allowing a nice respiratory rate to continue throughout the night. As a result, when the patient awakes in the morning, they should wake feeling refreshed and not experiencing any of the symptoms previously mentioned that may suggest carbon dioxide. We will now look at navigating our way around the machine. At the bottom here, this light shines green when the machine is plugged into the mains and the mains are switched on. Above it we have the on and off button to switch the machine on and off. Here we have the alarm silence button that will silence the alarms for 2 minutes while you sort out the issue. These buttons here move our way around the screen, and we'll come back to these in more detail. At the side of the machine we can see the power cable where this plugs into the mains power. Here we have the ports where air blows out of the machine and into your circuit, which will be attached to the patient. At the back of the machine we have the external battery. This can be removed by lifting the flap up and tipping the battery out. This battery here will give you an additional 4 hours of power, in addition to the 3 to 4 hours that the machine has internally, therefore giving you between 7 and 8 hours of power when not connected to the mains. To know how much power is left in your battery, hold down this button, which has a symbol of a battery on it, and it will light up to show how much charge the battery has. To insert the battery, replace at the bottom and push in until it clicks back into place. At the bottom here we have ports where we can connect the ventilator to the computer and to an oxygen probe. However, we don't tend to use these two. This here is where oxygen can be entrained if it is required. To access this, a nipple is needed and this clicks into place. Oxygen tubing is then placed onto the nipple. However, this must be removed if oxygen is not being used. Some people have a backup ventilator, and if that is the case, the external batteries can be interchanged if required. If the battery is running low, which you can see by putting your finger on the bar, then you may be able to switch batteries with the other spare ventilator that you have, in which case swap the battery and place back in. Once the ventilator is connected back into the mains again, you will see on the screen there will be a picture of a battery and a lightning bolt, which shows that your internal and external battery are charged. We're now going to look at operating the device. To switch the power on, press this button. Now at the minute this ventilator is working on its battery. So you see, as soon as we switch it on, it comes up with an alarm that says start on battery, and we need to press reset to select that. You'll notice that as soon as you switched on the device, it starts to ventilate. On the screen, you can see at the top here a pressure bar. The pressure bar moves up and down as it provides pressure with the patient's breathing. In the top left-hand corner, it tells you which mode of ventilation we're in. Next, we can see the date and the time. In the bottom left-hand corner, we can see a picture of the SD card. If this has a cross through it, it means that there is an error with the SD card, in which case we would ask you to remove the SD card and we would send you a replacement. The ventilator will continue to work without the SD card in place, it just won't be recording any data. Next, we can see a picture of the batteries. At the minute, there's a box around the detachable battery showing that this is the power we're running on. If the ventilator was plugged into the mains, there would no longer be a box around here, and you would see two lightning bolts showing that the internal and the detachable battery are both charging. Next, we can see the word menu. We can press up to access the menu. Now we can see a selection. If we press down, the first option we come to says switch to secondary settings. Some people will have a second program of ventilation set on their device, and if so, this will have been decided by a clinician. However, not everyone will have this option. If your client does have secondary settings and you need to access them, press select, and the device will ask you, do you definitely want to switch to secondary settings? In which case you would press yes. In this case, we'll press no. Scrolling further down, we can see options. To select, move through the options and we can see LCD brightness, so we can change the brightness or the dimness of the screen. Scrolling down further, we can see screensaver. This is because some people just find this screen a bit too bright at night, in which case we can either have this as a dim version, complete blackout, or so you can just see the breathing bar moving up and down. Coming out of this menu, we press finish, and then scrolling down again we come to alarm log. This is really useful if you've had a lot of alarms going off on your device, and when you ring into our department we may ask you to access this. If we press select, it shows you the alarms that have been going off frequently, and then we can help you troubleshoot. To come out of this menu, again, press finish. Scrolling further down, we have information, but you shouldn't need anything in there. To come out of this menu completely, press exit. Now, if you do have any alarms go off on your machine, there'll be a red or a yellow bar that shows with an alarm message. This button here will give you 2 minutes of silence whilst you sort out the issue. Once you've figured out what's going on with the device and you've sorted it out, there'll be a button here which says reset. Press here and that will accept the alarm and go back to usual ventilation again. To switch off the machine, we press the power button. It will ask us, do we definitely want to switch the power off? And then we can press yes. If there are any issues with your ventilator, it will alarm. This will show up on the screen and will either show up as a red bar or a yellow flashing or yellow solid bar to represent high, medium and low priority alarms. This alarm silence button will silence the alarm for 2 minutes whilst you figure out the problem and resolve it. Once you have resolved the issue, this here will show up with a blue bar saying reset. Press the button just below it to reset the alarm. High priority alarms include loss of power, in which case just check your power connection, check that the plug socket is switched on, and if you have any concerns about the plug socket, you may wish to try a different power source. If the problem continues, contact your NIV department. Another high priority alarm is ventilator inoperative, in which case I would suggest you contact your NIV department as it sounds like your ventilator needs replacing. A final high priority alarm is check circuit, in which case go back and check your circuits from the hose and filter all the way to the Most of the medium priority alarms suggest that there is either a leak or a blockage in the circuit. Alarms that suggest there is a blockage or occlusion in the circuit include low circuit leak, high expiratory pressure, low expiratory pressure, and high inspiratory pressure. These all suggest that there is a blockage, in which case please check if you're using a filter that it has been changed recently. If you are using a grey hose, check that this has not become kinked or occluded at any point. Please also check the expiratory port on the mask to check that this is not blocked. If the issue is not resolved by any of these, you may wish to contact your NIV department for further advice. Alarms that indicate there is a leak in the circuit include circuit disconnection and low inspiratory pressure. These suggest that there is a leak somewhere. Again, check that each connection is connected thoroughly and also that the hose has not split, which can also cause a leak. Again, if you have checked all of these and this alarm still sounds, you may want to either change the circuit for a new one, and if that still doesn't work, contact your NIV department for further advice. To start your NIV therapy, you will need your NIV device and your power cable. You will also need a filter. Your clinician will advise you if you don't need a filter, but if you do, it connects here and the hose connects straight onto the filter. If not using a filter, the hose would go straight onto the ventilator at this point. The other end of your hose connects onto your mask. Now that you have the mask connected, fit it to your patient. To start with, put this on lightly. The bottom groove needs to go between the lip and the chin, and the top of the mask sits on top of the nose. So if we put this on here, and the straps come round, and then just clip onto the side. There is a magnet here that attaches the mask. Now what you need to do is tighten the straps. There are Velcro on either side so that you can adjust the tightness of the mask at the bottom and also the top to get the correct fit. It is important when you're taking the mask on and off to use the clips and not the Velcro, because the Velcro will become loose if you continue to use this daily. So do try and just use the magnetic clips once it is set correctly. Now once your mask is in place, you can start ventilation. You should feel for any air escaping around the mask that may suggest it is not fit correctly. If the mask is leaking a lot, you may need to tighten the straps, and you can do this with the Velcro and just pulling slightly tighter. You do, however, need to be careful because over-tightening the mask can cause pressure sores, especially on the bridge of the nose, so it is important to monitor the skin on that area. If you're finding that you are getting a lot of mask leak, rather than tightening the straps again and again, do try taking the mask off completely and putting it on again, because it may just be that it was on slightly to the side. To remove the mask, switch off the ventilator first by pressing off and then selecting power off, yes. Then remove the magnetic clips at the bottom and the headgear can then be removed. If your male clients have a long beard, this can affect the seal of the mask and therefore you may need to ask them to shave. Ideally, being clean shaven will provide the best seal. With regards to cleaning of the equipment, if you're using a filter, this needs changing weekly. The hose needs washing once a week in warm soapy water, rinsing out and leaving to dry perhaps over a door frame. The headgear also needs washing once a week along with the mask. Put this in warm soapy water, rinse and leave to dry in room air. However, the rubber seal of the mask does need wiping down once a day with a damp cloth. Oil and skin cells can build upon the mask and this can cause an increase in leak, so it is important that this is wiped down daily. There are 4 main types of masks that you can use with NIV therapy. This is called the full face mask and fits over both the nose and the mouth and is particularly good for mouth breathers. It is worth noting that the expiratory port is around here. This is an intentional leak that allows carbon dioxide to escape. It is important that this is not covered over, for example with bed sheets, whilst your client is in bed. To fit this mask, the lower part of the mask sits between the chin and the lip and the upper part sits on the nose. This mask is applied like so. Bring the headgear around, attach with magnets at the side and then adjust the straps as needed with the Velcro at the bottom and then the top to tighten the mask. You should be able to fit 2 fingers down each side of the mask, and it's important not to over tighten this mask because you can cause a breakdown of the skin on the bridge of the nose, so it is important to keep monitoring that. To remove the mask, undo the magnetic clips at the side and then remove. The second type of mask is a nasal mask. Some people prefer these masks if they feel particularly claustrophobic, especially with the full face mask. For this mask, this just sits over the nose, the headgear comes round at the back, and then we have magnets that clip on at the sides. This attaches to your ventilator tubing. Again, we've got Velcro straps to tighten the headgear at the bottom and the top as needed. To use this mask, patients do need to be able to nose breathe, therefore keeping their mouth closed. If the patient is a mouth breather, air will escape out of their mouth. This would be discussed with by the clinician with the patient. To remove the mask, again, undo your magnetic clips at the side and take off. Another style of mask is what we call nasal pillows. This is similar to the nasal mask, but instead of going right over the nose, literally just sits right underneath. This is really quite liked by people that use NIV during the daytime, as it just makes sure that the rest of your face is clear, easier for communicating and for eating. For this mask, the nasal pillows just sit under the nostrils there, and the straps come round at the back. Finally, we have one of the hybrid masks. This mask sits underneath the nose but also goes over the mouth. This is particularly useful for either patients that feel claustrophobic with the full face mask but are mouth breathers, or if they have had skin breakdown on the bridge of their nose, so we really want a mask that doesn't touch the bridge of their nose at all. It is important that this mask sits underneath the nose. The rubber strap should not go over the top of the nose, it just cups the nose. That's important to get this mask fit right. So for this mask, we would position it so it sits underneath the nose but goes over the mouth. Pull the straps back, and again we have magnets that clip onto the side, and then Velcro so that you can adjust the straps if needed. You'll notice that for this mask the hose connects to the top, and this can be quite nice for people that lie on their front. Again, to remove the mask, just undo the magnetic clips at the side. For this mask, the expiratory port is at the front here, so again it is important that this part is not covered up by bed covers, because this is where the carbon dioxide will be expelled out of the mask. Some people use a humidifier with their Trilogy device, in which case you will need the following equipment: the ventilator, the humidifier or heating plate. We have two types, two models. We have the inspired version, which is the one I have here, and we also have a Fisher & Paykel 150. They are both essentially heating plates, and you can turn the temperature up and down, which increases or decreases the amount of humidification. You then need a water chamber, which is going to fit on top of the heating plate. Now, to fill the water chamber with water, we advise that you boil a kettle and let it cool down to room temperature to sterilise the water. Once the water is nice and cool, you can then fill it through either one of these holes. It doesn't matter which. If this was a new chamber, it may come with a blue cap, which you would need to pull off. Once you've filled the water, just be mindful that there is a maximum line, so don't go above that line with your water. In order to attach the water chamber to your humidifier, just slide in the back. There's a small lip here that you just need to go underneath, and then click, and this small lever here will click over the lip of the water chamber. Other equipment you will need is a short hose to connect the ventilator to the humidifier. You may or may not be advised to use a filter. If you are advised to use a filter, this is a yellow filter, and this would go into the side of the ventilator. Then the short hose connects onto there and then onto the holes. Again, it doesn't matter which hole you connect to. If you're advised not to use a filter, this hose would go straight onto the side of the Trilogy. Next, you need your long hose, which goes to your patient. This connects onto the other side of the hole, and this tube would then carry on to your patient. Now, with the inspired version, there is an on and off button at the side, so do make sure it's turned on, and when it is on, this will glow green. For this model, we recommend that you only have the humidification set at number 1, as this can over-humidify otherwise. The Fisher & Paykel version, you have more freedom to turn up and down as required. Once your humidification is set up, turn on your ventilator as usual, and air will blow out of the ventilator over this pool of warm water and into the hose connected to the patient. If you are advised to use yellow filters, these do need changing daily. It is important with the setup of the humidifier that the humidifier is either at the same level of the ventilator or slightly lower. This is to prevent condensation tracking from the humidifier back down into the ventilator. The same goes for the patient. You want the humidifier either at the same level or preferably slightly lower than the level of the patient's head, because we don't want condensation dripping from the tube down into the patient where it can collect in the mouth.